I call myself the joyful diabetic because there's great joy that comes about from knowing how your body functions. I know a part of it that you only know through being a diabetic. And that part is called attitude. He said, you might make it to 50, but you might not have your eyesight or your feet. And he really, really got my attention. And I was about to ask him a question and he interrupted. He said, you've got to lose weight. I weigh 235 pounds and I'm 5'9", obviously much larger than I am now. And so I said, yeah, I was also in denial, it turns out, about my weight as well. And so I said, I really agree. I have to really get on a program that's going to get my weight. How much should I weigh, Dr. Brown? And I share this with you because I've shared it with a lot of medical people. Nobody's ever heard this before, of this medical process that he said, when you stand in front of a full-length mirror naked, you're at the correct weight. And you like what you see. You're at the correct weight. Let's assume that all of us in this room had gone through a rigorous program and we've been selected to make a trip to the moon together. And we've trained, we know a lot about how the mechanics are going to work, and when we get into weightlessness and so on, make that long transition, over 200,000 miles, and we finally arrive safely at the moon. We can't wait to get out and walk around on the moon like so far only 12 humans have ever done. But we're one of the lucky ones. Before we can, however, we need to put spacesuits on because spacesuits are required. The moon is hostile to the human body. And so we need to don our spacesuits. Once we get our spacesuits on, of course, we'll work with a buddy, with each other, to verify that it has no crinkles or holes or anything negative. Because if we have a problem with our spacesuit and we get outside the spacecraft, what happens? We die. It is totally inhospitable to humans. So we check our spacesuits carefully, and then we go out and we enjoy the experience. What about here on Earth? Are we as conscious? The spacesuits that we live in, that are transport mechanisms for our spirit, are just as precious, more so, than the spacesuit we would put on the moon. So if we're that conscientious, if we were on a moon mission, wouldn't we be similarly conscientious here? And the answer is, for those of us who have diabetes, you bet, because it's a requirement. And so now I have a semi-automatic pancreas, also known as a Medtronic pump. And I love this little beauty because it has changed my life. It really has. And I call it a semi-automatic pancreas because it does 100% of the delivery of insulin, and the thinking part of it, that the normal mechanism of my body would function if I didn't have diabetes, that goes on up here. And with the Wizard now, we're part of the pump, we work together, and I have a great relationship with my pump. I stand in front of groups that most of whom have diabetes, and I'll say, how many of you hate your diabetes? And instantly every hand goes up. How many of you know that in all likelihood, you're going to have diabetes for the rest of your life? And more slowly, the hands go up. I say, help me out. I'm having trouble. How can you have a relationship with something you hate? I had a cardiac catheterization. And it was quite an experience because I was awake during the whole thing and I'm watching it and asking questions, and I guess I was annoying the surgeon a little bit, but I'm intrigued by this whole thing. And it turns out what's the initials?
LAD.
LAD. My LAD is totally blocked, does not function anymore. Not only that, it atrophied. So no point in a stent, you can't get in there. The thing is totally blocked. The good news is I had what's called a natural bypass. The two blood vessels on either side took over the load. One does backfill, comes up the back side of the LAD. How cool is that? So I have a heart that fixed itself. Wow! I love it. Now we're not talking about treating a hangnail here. We're talking about treating something that is systemic to our bodies. and not knowing a thing about how it works is dangerous, extremely dangerous. I believe to my core that if we who have diabetes stick together and help each other, we can certainly overcome a lot of the issues.